why I should not, be aggressive and angry and aversion very clearly, then it's very good. But if we can't do that, sometimes it works if I can think about some other reasons or some other ways, like excuses in a way. That if I suppose I have a very genuine like master, a lama, and then, immediately when I get aggressive or angry, and then I think about that. I think about that lama and said that this lama, told me not to get so much angry and things like that. So therefore, when I can think about that, and when my attention is kind of diverted to that, sometimes, it gives me a good, time or good effect that I can work, I can let go of the anger. And also, like instructions, good books. If I have certain instructions or certain books or certain, teachings, that's very impressive or that's very, very true or that inspires me a lot. When I can think about those also, it helps me.
당원에 드레주사는 콘도사리 미버치기 토네베 균년의 콘도사는 야우샤요. 콘도베 축축셔. 드레주사 인지 미버르도 카페시 로토고야 시작했어. 드레주사 콘도 미버치기 토네야 콘도사요도나. 내게는 콘도사를 망하지 봐 되네. 가서 드네 안 되지 지금도 내지 콘도사고도 주소도 되지 망하서 써야지. 에너지 코너를 지세 안 타마 레디산 소수의 강라이바 가서 지금인도 소소로지 디디 직선으로 따지지 간도라지 콩루디 미버지게 된도베 콩루 무튀니 상모 주시지 가사 이산에베 근데 지금인도 소소로지 콩루 사서 망고 써야샤 있나 안 콩루 사데 지기도 누버 도도로 지기 지모토 인유산에 미버지게는 누버 템포데 줄모토나 저르스 and control television less so much. Shemada Mibachi Dolia, Condube, Guinean Hochimina, and control Charo, and Karina Magic Chenduelang, Yunga, no Jutolia, Bear, and
Another thing that helps me a lot is not to allow to focus only on one point or one person or incident. Like usually, we get angry about something. And then our mind is totally concentrated or focused on that. And then we again and again think, how bad that is and how negative that is. And, so we are only on one point. And then our anger becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. And then we have to do something about that and act something. So instead of focusing on one thing or one point, if we can kind of divert, if we can let our mind feel the same with other things, kind of shift our attention or focus on many things, even with anger. For instance, I'm angry at this point, and then I say, this is also not right, so I'm angry at that, and that is also not right. So my anger can go to many places, then on myself too, and then on. So when that happens, even if on anger, even the concentration or kind of emotion is anger, if I concentrate or focus on so many things that I'm angry about, then somehow my anger becomes kind of less because it's not solid, it's not, focused on one thing, so it doesn't continue with that. So therefore, after some time, you kind of, your mind is kind of there's so many things that you kind of need to be angry about, that you don't need to be too much angry about that particular thing. So therefore, it's very important that we kind of try to shift our focus of the concentration from one point or one person to many other things. And that I find it very useful.
And umadi miji ko 가서다지 룩 방법이 알았어. 룩. 나 룩하셔야지 그 룩디스 칼라마니. 오마쇼로 봐. 오마쇼도 사 룩디스 칼라마니 파자게. 그래서 고배 공도산. 근데 룩하셔 동도 산다고 룩 상황을 찍 동시에 산 상황 저러와. 근데 거기 공도스 산 가사에서 동도 룩 상황. 룩 자상만 보이디사. ngabjo juju de dong de khran kale khan pige khashe ji ur ji he ja khran khon de shi de sung san ge mo de ge de 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 san de na shi lu khashe ji ma da me da kho ba dong ne ba ji sai sha ning ga da lu ja cha ma bu de shi du san ne da khala ga de dong ne da khran kale de khan de pige ge de ra ne de na shi khashe ji nga zo khon de ji se du san ko tem bo de shi khashe yi se du san da ji ji de de me da khran
There was one man, a kind of shepherd, and then he had lots of sheep to look after. And these sheep were not, doing what he wanted. He had to milk those sheep, and then they didn't kind of behave very well. So they were, running around and, jumping and things like that. So it was very difficult for him. So he was very angry. So he hit the sheep. He hit the one sheep, and then all the other sheep got even more wilder. So he hit many sheep. So, he was beating the sheep, but when he beat like 50, 60 sheep already, he got so tired that he was like, he was exhausted. And then he was a little bit angry with himself. And then he had to laugh, and he just, he had to give up being angry too much with the sheep. So if he had only one or two sheep, maybe he would have been so angry that he would have, beat them to death maybe. But because there are so many and he had to concentrate on so many, that he couldn't continue to be, angry. So it's a little bit like that, So if we kind of divert our attention of anger to many things or to many areas, then that can also help us to let go. How can we understand the ultimate nature if we only have the tool of relative?
다들 딘중사데 구조부터하네 봐 계시어마 된다마다 아주 딘중기 대화는 인사데 딘중스는 통문을 되는 정보를 되는 통 다자 통문 이바되고 정보지 이바를 되는 그 통문을 샤버로 봐도 정보 매매 통시 용다며 안에디 통무대야 정보를 되는 샤데 샤론누자 초시 이게 샤라 되는 가서다지 샤라 되는 노 홀라 되는 장사를 다들 내가 아주 샤를 용거로 드리주사 디주제데 떼서 떼죠 토네 요한의 예의주사 디주제데 지게 죄는 떼바 인상 장와요 장와사데 장와도 주버지 요만 아주 데 프리덤 사데 자 인스마다 장와도 주버사데 고란 가셔지 자완이는 마되버체 빈니수 가셔 아주 때다지 가셔야지 파 풍부더지 통연주상 풍부사데 나수에 파 풍부세 쪼다와다 나수에 파지 풍부세제 가 쪼다와데라 마되바 풍부사데 유경원의 수에 삼아든지 아주 로래야 샤이니 그냥 원리 주 토래야 나수에 쪼다와데 매입니다 풍부사데 유경원의 수샤데 매 배나 대당 아주 여기 가셔야지 배나 퍼버지 나눠려야 그래서 추시 루고 이미나 추도 루고래 대 추도 루或者추교 tun진이 버지 여버지당 안 아주에 가셔야 그런 추교와 통 대체 이제 아주에 추보로 제제가 민으로부터 가서 도로 땅에 두사 추보시 유기 그 주도 나 다나시 야 동기 뒤수산 뒤가려야 자주 루상 양 거기 추보의 잡아차 대용되도 네 유산 뒤균산 되네 때네 당원이 비균산 되네 라고도 줘야 하면 라고도 줘봐 왜 동반이 있어야 돼 동반 써야 돼 장황 그 유경원의 주변 동 아주 가서 띵중 낭점 这个对呢对吧zam写了对呢그 낭점 쉬운 거 배는 아주 여기 주난 거 나와디 주난 거 나와디 나외 그 나와디 그 유경원의 주 나외 나와디 상 다 대한 거나 난가는 더 수요야 와다 에너지 가서 원래 추여 와다 안 추이 나도 되네 더 수셔롱이 봐 아서 비교긴데 망보저 처벌해야 댄세 다외 순이 샤워를 마도 디기 딘중기 코럼 찍어 내비나 다외 순이 샤워야 드리주산 디주산을 되네 그런 딘중이 발을 되네 동리 샤돼 동리 시도상 동바사야 되고 가르이나야 가서지 정신 초토도 좋으면 가르이나야 낭도로 인상 동바래 동바 인상 동바 고마가바 소마라 드리지 이비 인상 딘중은 나와 나도 차도록 차대요 알았어 드리기 인두산에 배는 가서 여기 배는 오면 가셔야 도 여러분 되어야 오면 가셔但是그 두个人心都그런 유기문에 주 두个人心都주도해 입니다 그 두个人心一把제제 대대해 입니다 미래이나 두 네베人心的 요거래 심신 신달에 네베人心的 요거 이번에 심신 신달에 되게 패배人心的 요도하다 에너지 밀려 서봐라 네베人心的 요도하다 그 유기문에 두사 네베 人心 속도도 주대বে 速度把这没有钱这个语言忙不起的对就是俺写了图图上俺写了面都差但是用的话的这就是第句在了的速度都没有我有过的没有这个团的너랑 아주 군중 딘디기 남지 안 되네야 되네 동번이 사디 지 고아를 내주산 고아샤를 안도 마다 군중 딘디기 남사데 파방네 동번이 사지 고아네야 버지면 대 고아네야 차단 유한이나 가면 해버지래야 동번이 있어서 라샤 저 탐제 그人 동번이인데 저 탐제 다다 아주 미기 통하는 그 동번자랍니다 나하고 아주 섬은 시 이제랍니다 그러나 동신도 낭낭신 동대야디 왜 가서 디베 터돌이 디베 가셔야 돼 원사신부터 데려다 와 유산 띵중기 준센데 상당히 유산 안 동번이 돼 삼토가지 용거를 삼토
Of course, you have to understand ultimate truth through the relative truth. Otherwise, there is no basis to understand that. Now, this we have to. When we talk about the ultimate nature of things, it has to be understood through the interdependence nature. Through, for instance, everything is dependent, interdependent. For instance, when you say or when you think about something short, then it is relative to the long. Something is shorter than that. It's related to something else. And if you say this is long, then also there is something, there must be something that is shorter than this. So therefore that is long. It doesn't exist anything called short or long on its own. Short and long are relative to others. So in the same way, when you think about east, we say east because there is west. And west is based on the east. So in the same way, south and north and all other things. So there is nothing that cannot be established, anything cannot be established unless we, kind of base it or we relate it to something else. So therefore, everything is interdependent. Like for instance, we say this is something like a cup or a vase or something like that. Also, for us, generally, we feel that vase or that thing is there on its own. But when we think about vase, unless we make this designation that there is a vase, the vase doesn't happen. We first say this is vase. There has to be vase like this, like this. So this is a vase, and then the vase is. So there is lots of attribution or contribution from our side. Designating the vase is creating the vase itself. So therefore, when, for instance, we put water in it, something, and then it becomes the water container water bowl or something like that. And if you put tea in a bowl, and then that becomes the tea bowl or tea cup or something like that. So therefore, it was not tea bowl or not water bowl before we put water or tea. So it's dependent. So that kind of, dependently arising and dependently designated. So when we talk about emptiness, we are talking about the interdependence, so dependently arising, dependently designated. And if there is no, because there is nothing which is existing on its own, which is kind of independently existing, without, related to or without some kind of designation or without many other parts or many other conditions coming together, dependently arising. Therefore, the nature of things is emptiness. When we talk about emptiness, it has to be based on the understanding of the relative things. Even when we say, the reflection of the moon, the water moon, the water reflection of the moon on the water. And now that is the water, the moon that's reflecting the water is kind of not existing on its own. We can see that there is nothing there. But then that happens also because of many reasons. It's an interdependent arising. There has to be the moon in the sky, there has to be the water there, there has to be, the reflectability of that in the water. And so when all these things come together, then you see the reflection of the moon in the water. So therefore, that is emptiness. Emptiness and interdependent has to be together. Because everything is interdependently arising and interdependently designated, and there is nothing existing on its own independently, therefore the nature of everything is emptiness. But because everything is emptiness, therefore, everything is interdependent. Everything is possible. Therefore, that is the emptiness and interdependence kind of go together. And also, we think that everything is just as it is that we see there, but it's not always like that. When we think about even like poison, we say poison is very dangerous and very bad. It's very negative, something poison. But there are lots of poisonous plants that if you eat, if a human being eats, they will die. But if some other animals eat, they don't die. It doesn't become, it is not a poison to them. So therefore, is that poison or poisonness is really existing on its own. If it exists as it's on its own, then it should be, killing everything. But it doesn't necessarily kill everything. So therefore, nothing is there on its own as it is. It's all interdependent and it's all, dependent arising. And therefore, there is ultimately its emptiness. So therefore, if we don't combine these things together, understand this in this way, the emptiness or the ultimate truth is understanding of the relative truth and how we actually understand the relative truth. If we don't do that, then if ultimate truth has to be something separate and something totally, not based on the relative truth, then that becomes like nihilism. It's something out there, everything is not there, something like that. So this is not the case. It has to be, and that is the wonder. That is the most wonderful thing, is this togetherness. The things are, empty in its nature, but it's interdependent and independently arising, and therefore it's empty. And so therefore anything is possible. So that is the most wonderful, nature of things.
Last question. Yeah. Last question is empty.
So that's maybe all now.
Oh yeah.
There are more questions, of course.
Yeah, maybe this is not last questions. There are more questions. Okay. Sarvapapasya garanam kushalasya upasampada swachitta parayavatapanam etat buddhanam chasanam taragati tipo maya vasyaya buddham savanam cha vidyudapram cha evam dashravya sanskritam anena punayena tu savadrashita mavapya nirijitya cha dosh vidivishya jara roja mityo mahormi sangulat samudarayam bhavasagara jagad badu savamangalam. Kine
Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Dutiyam Api Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dutiyam Api Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami Dutiyam Api Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Tritiyam Api Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Tritiyam Api Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami Tritiyam Api Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Shasta Bhagavan Tathagato Arahan Samyak Sambuddho Vidya Charana Sampannaha Sungato Lokavidanuttaraha Purusha Dhammya Sarati Shasta Deva Manushyanam Buddho Bhagavan Shri Jina Shakya Munim Namaskaromi Pujayami Sharanam Jagachami Shasta Bhagavan Tathagato Arahan Samyak Sambuddho Vidya Charana Sampannaha Sungato Lokavidanuttaraha Purushadamya Sarati Shasta Deva Manushyanam Buddho Bhagavan Shri Jina Shakya Muni Namaskaromi Pujayami Sharanam Jagachami Shasta Bhagavan Tathagato Arahan Samyak Sambuddho Vidya Charana Sampanna Sungato Lokavidanuttara Purusha Dhammya Sati Shasta Deva Manushyanam Buddho Bhagavan Shri Jina Shakya Muni Namaskaromi Pujayami Sharanam Jagachami.
The earth is perfumed with scented water and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, sun and moon. Visualizing this as the Buddha realm, I offer it, so that all beings may enjoy this perfectly pure realm. I pray that you turn the Dharma chakras of the lesser, greater, and common vehicles in accordance with the thoughts and various intellects of beings.